You can't handle a business, Mom said when I asked for $62,000 to start my tech company. It's too risky, Dad added, then gifted my brother a $550,000 loan for a luxury car and his failed restaurant. Now he wants me to sell my home to save them? So I froze their assets, blocked every credit line, and watched their lawyer call me Nonstop. You can't handle a business, my mother said sharply, her voice cutting through the living room like a blade. I stood there, holding the neatly printed business plan in my hands, heart pounding. $62,000. That's all I was asking for. Not a handout, an investment. It's too risky, Dad added without even glancing up from his newspaper. We've seen how you get when things get hard. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. This wasn't the first time they underestimated me. I should have expected it. Still, a small part of me had hoped, foolishly, that maybe this time they'd see me differently. That maybe they'd finally see my potential. But then came the final blow. A week later, I found out they gifted my brother, Ryan, a $550,000 loan. Not for his startup, not for a business, but for a luxury car and yet another one of his half-baked restaurant ventures that was already circling the drain like the others before it. Ryan is different, Mom explained when I confronted her. He's got the charisma, the people skills. You're too, introverted. Dad nodded in agreement, as if my entire existence had been summed up and dismissed in one sentence. I remember standing there, staring at them, as Ryan swaggered in, keys to his brand new Porsche dangling from his fingers. He flashed that cocky grin he always wore, the one that seemed permanently etched into his face like some grotesque family heirloom. Don't take it personally, man, he chuckled, clapping me on the shoulder like we were buddies. You're just not cut out for this stuff. I said nothing, just smiled thinly and left the room. My stomach churned, but not from sadness anymore. No, this was something different, something sharper, cleaner. Rage. They didn't believe in me. Fine. But they were going to learn what happened when you underestimated someone like me. 3 years passed. While Ryan burned through their money on failed menus and overpriced renovations, I built my tech company from nothing. I hustled, coded, pitched, failed, pivoted, and then succeeded. I built it without a dime from them. Now I own 2 patents. Closed my second round of funding. And just last month, we turned our first 7-figure profit. But I never rubbed it in. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew they'd come crawling eventually. And they did. It started with a late-night call from Dad. Son, we need to talk. His voice was tight, rehearsed. Your mother and I, we're in a bit of a bind. Of course, they were. Ryan's latest venture had collapsed spectacularly, lawsuits, unpaid debts, and $500,000 gone. Just like that. And the Porsche? Repossessed. We were hoping, Mom chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet, that you could maybe help out. We know you're doing quite well now. And then came the real kicker. To help keep the house, you may need to sell your condo, honey, Dad added. Family comes first, after all. That was the moment everything inside me snapped into perfect, freezing clarity. I hung up. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Within 72 hours, I froze their assets, blocked every credit line, and activated the power of attorney Dad had so foolishly signed over to me years ago when they needed my signature for its small tax issue. Now their lawyer calls me daily. And I watch the missed calls pile up, calmly sipping my coffee as my family finally feels what it's like to be on the outside looking in. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I tried everything to earn their respect. I worked hard in school, stayed out of trouble, followed every rule. But nothing was ever enough. Because no matter what I did, Ryan was always better. Ryan, the golden child. The family's shining star. Captain of the football team, local celebrity, effortlessly charming. He could crash 3 cars, fail 2 colleges, lose tens of thousands gambling, and still Mom would call him her sweet boy who just needs a little guidance. Me? I graduated with honors. Landed a job straight out of college. Saved every dime. Quiet, focused, responsible. Which apparently translated to boring in my parents' eyes. Ryan's got the spark, Dad would say, pouring another drink. You're reliable, but business is about instinct. Instinct. That word haunted me. They didn't see the long nights I worked building my startup after hours. Coding until 3 a.m. while holding down a full-time job. Skipping weekends, birthdays, vacations. They never asked about my ideas, my prototypes, my small wins. All they cared about was Ryan's latest bar, his steakhouse, his organic vegan fusion nightmare. Each one failing faster than the last. And every time he fell, there was my family. Arms wide open, checkbook ready. He just needs one more chance. When Ryan's fourth restaurant burned through the last of their savings, they drained my college fund temporarily. I was still in my 20s, trusting, believing their promises that they'd pay me back. They never did. When I confronted them, Mom smiled. Family sacrifices for each other. That's what love is. Funny how my sacrifices were always expected, while Ryan's disasters were always forgiven. But nothing compared to the Porsche incident. I found out purely by accident. A banker called me, confused why my parents were co-signing a $550,000 loan for Ryan's luxury car when they already had 3 open lines of credit. My stomach turned. I thought it was a mistake. A joke. When I asked Mom about it that night, she didn't even flinch. "We thought it might boost his confidence," she said gently. "A strong image helps in business, honey." "Mom, his business is bankrupt." "He's trying his best," she snapped. "He needs support." I stood there, mouth dry. "You couldn't spare $62,000 for my company, but you gave him a Porsche?" Dad chimed in coldly. "He's more cut out for entrepreneurship than you." I almost laughed. My hands clenched instead. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was Ryan standing behind him, smirking, sipping a craft beer I had probably paid for at some point. He winked at me, like this was all just one big joke. "You can't hold a grudge forever, bro," he said casually. "We're family." Family. That word kept coming back, always weaponized. Always used to justify taking, but never giving. I swallowed it all. For years. Until the phone call. The desperation in Dad's voice was almost comical. "Ryan's in trouble, son." No kidding. Apparently, his restaurant was being sued by former employees for unpaid wages. Investors were threatening legal action, and the bank was now going after their assets. And suddenly, the people who once called me too timid to handle business were begging me to save the very empire they handed over to Ryan. "We might lose the house," Mom whispered, voice breaking. "If you sold your place." I cut her off. "You want me to sell my home to cover his failures? This is what family does." Dad barked. "You've done well for yourself. It's time to give back." That was it. No apology. No accountability. Just entitlement, dressed up as obligation. The next morning, I met with my lawyer. It turns out all those years ago, when Dad needed me to co-sign some tax paperwork to restructure the family's business loans, he had signed away far more power than he realized. Power of attorney. Full financial authority over certain family assets tied to my name. And that's when I knew the game was mine now. I didn't just refuse to help. I froze every joint asset. I locked every credit line. I notified every bank that legal oversight was shifting. Their personal accounts? In review. Their business funds? Frozen pending litigation. Ryan's Porsche? Repossessed again. The phone calls started within hours. At first, they tried reasoning. Then begging. Then screaming. "You can't do this to us." Mom shrieked over the phone. Dad's lawyer left 27 voicemails in 2 days. "Ryan?" He sent one text. "You've made a huge mistake, bro." "No, Ryan. You did." The silence didn't last. 3 days after I locked down the accounts, I heard a knock on my door. It was Ryan. Of course. Dressed in his designer jacket. Probably one of the few luxury items he hadn't sold off yet. He strolled inside like nothing was wrong. Like we were still brothers. Like he hadn't been bleeding me and my parents dry for years. "We need to talk," he said, his voice oozing false calm. I folded my arms. "No, you need to listen." He smirked, like he always did. That smirk that used to get him out of everything. "Look, man, I get it. You're mad. Fine. But freezing everything? Come on. That's overkill." I didn't say a word. "You've made your point," he continued, trying to sound reasonable. "But now you're screwing everyone. Mom's a mess. Dad's losing it. The house might go to foreclosure if you don't fix this." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean if you don't fix this?" He scoffed. "You think you're the hero now? Bro, you're where you are because of us. You lived rent-free for years. We supported you when you were getting started. That was it. You supported me?" My voice sharpened, rising. "You mean those years when I begged for a small loan to start my company and got laughed at? When Dad said I wasn't cut out for business while he handed you $500,000 to open a bar you bankrupted in 8 months? You call that support?" Ryan waved his hand like I was being dramatic. "Dad believed in me because I take risks. You don't have the stomach for it." "No." I shot back, stepping forward. "I don't have the stomach for scams. I built my business with no help, no handouts, no favors. You blew through over $1 million of family money playing entrepreneur while I worked 2 jobs coding in my apartment." His grin finally cracked. I saw the panic flicker in his eyes. Look, man, he started. No, you listen. My voice thundered through the room. I carried this family on my back while you played king. And now, when your house of cards collapses, you come to me like I'm your personal bailout fund? Not this time. The door burst open before he could reply. Mom and Dad rushed in, like they'd been waiting outside, listening. Mom's mascara was smeared, her face flushed. Dad's jaw was tight with rage. Son, enough? Dad barked. This has gone far enough. You're tearing this family apart. No, he tore this family apart. I pointed directly at Ryan. Mom's voice cracked. We raised you better than this. You can't just cut us off. We're your parents. I laughed bitterly. Funny how you remember you're my parents when you need something. Dad stepped closer, his voice dropping into a warning tone. You're being spiteful. Vindictive. Family sacrifices for each other. Oh, you mean like I sacrificed when you drained my college fund? When you took my savings temporarily and never paid me back? When you dismissed every accomplishment I ever made because it wasn't flashy enough to brag about at dinner parties? Mom's lip trembled. You always misunderstood us. No, I finally understand you perfectly. I cut her off coldly. You don't want a family. You want an ATM. Ryan exploded then, his face beet red, voice cracking with rage. You think you're better than us? You think just because you got lucky with your stupid little company you can talk to us like this? You're nothing without us. I stared him dead in the eyes, my voice low and cutting. Without you, I'm everything. Without me, you're bankrupt. The room went dead silent. Mom whimpered, Dad's fists clenched at his sides, and Ryan stood there, panting completely out of things to say for once in his spoiled life. I let the silence hang, making sure every word burned into them. I didn't come here to negotiate, I said calmly. This is how it is now. Every account stays frozen. The house? The businesses? The remaining assets? I control them now. Legally. Dad's voice was shaking now. You wouldn't. I already did. Ryan let out a broken laugh, desperate, cornered. You're destroying everything, man. No, I said. I'm saving myself. And then came the final blow. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed a manila envelope on the coffee table. Here's a list of every personal debt, loan, and financial gift you took from me over the last 10 years, totaling over $890,000. I have full documentation, signed agreements, text messages, bank transfers. The paper trail is airtight. Their faces turned ghost white. And this, I added, tapping the folder, is already in the hands of my attorneys. If you or your lawyer attempt any further legal action, I will file for full repayment plus fraud and embezzlement charges. Dad's mouth opened, but no words came out. Mom started sobbing. Ryan just stood there, utterly paralyzed. I'm done being your safety net, I said, my voice steady. You wanted a battle. You created it. I turned to leave. As I reached the door, Ryan finally shouted after me. You'll regret this. You'll be alone. I stopped, looked back one final time. No, I'll be free. And I walked out. The fallout was immediate. And it was brutal. By the time I got home that night, my phone was already lighting up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls, voicemails, text messages, my mother sobbing, my father threatening, Ryan flipping between rage and desperate begging. We're family. You're ruining everything. You've crossed a line. Please, please, bro, don't do this. I muted the phone, let them scream into the void. The next morning, their lawyer called again. We'd like to negotiate, he said stiffly. There's nothing to negotiate, I replied, my voice flat. They built this mess. Now they can live in it. And then the dominoes started to fall. The house? Repossessed. The luxury cars? Gone. The restaurants? Shut down by creditors. The image my parents worked so hard to maintain? Publicly shattered. Within 6 months, everything they had built, or rather, pretended to build, collapsed. The gossip spread fast through our community. Their golden son Ryan, once the poster boy of success, was now the man everyone whispered about behind closed doors. And me? I was finally free. For the first time in my life, I woke up every morning without that invisible weight on my chest. No late-night panic calls. No manipulative guilt trips. No more being treated like their private emergency fund. I expanded my company. Opened new offices. Hired real talent. People who respected me not because of my name, but because of what I had built. I traveled. Bought my first house, paid in full. Not a penny of it came from them. Every dollar was mine. Earned. But they weren't done trying. 2 months after the collapse, my mother showed up unannounced at my office. She was thinner now, exhausted, her face pale and drawn. "Please," she whispered, voice shaking. "You've made your point. Can we just start over? You've punished us enough." I stared at her, feeling no anger, no hatred, only clarity. "You never understood, Mom," I said quietly. "This wasn't punishment. This was protection. Protection from you." Her eyes welled up with tears. "We're your family." "No," I corrected. "You were my obligation. That's over." I nodded to security. They escorted her out. Ryan was next. A week later, I got a text. "Can we meet? Just talk." Out of sheer curiosity, I agreed. We met at a cheap diner on the edge of town, far from the fancy restaurants he used to parade through. He looked like a man broken by his own arrogance, his expensive clothes replaced with clearance rack leftovers. He didn't even try to pretend anymore. "I messed up," he mumbled, barely able to look me in the eye. "I thought Dad would always bail me out. That you would. I never thought you'd actually, cut me off like that." "You mean finally treat you like an adult?" He winced. "Yeah." There was silence. He looked up. His voice cracked. "I lost everything, man." I sipped my coffee calmly. "No, Ryan. You lost what wasn't yours to begin with." "I need your help," he whispered. "Just one more time." I stared at him, studied him. For a second, the old me almost surfaced, the one who always stepped in, always saved him. But not this time. I smiled. "You're finally learning what I had to learn a long time ago, Ryan. No one's coming to save you." I stood up, dropped a few bills on the table, and left him sitting there, defeated, alone, silent. The final nail in the coffin came from the most unexpected person. A few months later, I got an email. It was from Ryan's ex-wife, Julia. "I just wanted to say thank you," she wrote. "I don't know how you found the strength to finally stop enabling them, but seeing you do it gave me the courage to finally break away too. I'm building a new life now, one I should have built years ago. You saved more than just yourself." I stared at the email for a long time. For the first time, I allowed myself to smile, not out of spite, but out of peace. I was finally free. It's been over a year now. A year since I walked away. A year since I stopped setting myself on fire to keep them warm. And for the first time in my life, I finally live. My company just closed a major deal, 8 figures. I now sit at the table with people who respect me for what I built, not for what they can take. I own my own home, paid in full. I take vacations when I want. I invest where I want. And every decision is mine. The silence, the peace, it's priceless. But the real freedom? It's internal. No more guilt. No more shame. No more twisted sense of obligation masked as family duty. I don't carry their weight anymore. For years, they told me. Family helps each other. But in their world, help only ever flowed one way, from me to them. They called it loyalty. I now call it what it truly was. Emotional debt disguised as love. Sometimes, I still get calls. Blocked numbers. Anonymous emails. Even letters in the mailbox, long, rambling, manipulative. "You've changed. You're cold. One day you'll regret this." No, I won't. Not now. Not ever. One evening, a few months ago, I ran into Dad. Pure accident. At a grocery store. His hair was thinner. Shoulders slumped. Skin pale. He looked at me like a man who had seen a ghost. He tried to smile, like old times. Like nothing happened. "Hey, son, how's work?" I smiled politely. "Calm. Steady. Excellent." He nodded awkwardly. "That's good. Your mother still talks about you." I didn't take the bait. "I'm sure she does." A long pause. And then, "We're still family, son." I looked him straight in the eye, the same man who once told me I wasn't cut out for business. The man who happily watched me fund my brother's failures while mocking my dreams. And I delivered the final words he never expected. We were family. Now, we're just people who share some DNA. I walked away calm, whole, and stronger than I had ever been. Here's what I finally understand. You don't owe people your life simply because they share your last name. You don't have to carry the weight of others' bad choices. Blood means nothing without respect. They chose entitlement. I chose freedom. And I will never apologize for that.